To celebrate 10 years of car soccer, Rocket League developer Psyonix recently released a video highlighting some incredible stats. For example, over the last decade, the community has scored over 74 billion goals. Also, almost 49,000 players have reached the top rank, Supersonic Legend. But today I want to focus on this surprising revelation. The fact that over the life of this game, Team Blue has a 2.8% edge in wins over Team Orange. Now, at first glance, this may seem like an insignificant difference. I mean, team color assignment is random, and we shouldn't expect to see an exact 50-50 split, right? Well, let me break it down to you on a larger scale. If I were to flip a fair coin 1 million times, statistics tell us to expect a maximum deviation of plus or minus 1,500, or 0.15%. At this large of a sample size, it's not going to be far off a true 50-50. Comparably, to end up with the deviation Rocket League is claiming, it would be like landing on heads 28,000 more times than tails, a result that has the probability of basically zero. And remember, this is just for a sample size of 1 million. Based on some previous statistics released by Psyonix, we can estimate there has been over 10 billion matches during the last 10 years. And applying the 2.8% deviation to that total means Psyonix is telling us that Blue has amassed at least 280 million more wins than Orange. Assuming a fair and unbiased comparison, the chances of this amount of deviation is incalculable. So what's going on here? Why does one team have such an edge in an equation that should end up very close to 50-50? Well, let's try and find out. Before we start exploring some theories, I think it's important to determine whether these statistics from Psyonix can even be trusted. With such unlikely results, it's good to be skeptical. Now, shortly after the anniversary video was released, this player was quick to post to Reddit with the accusation that Psyonix must be lying. With these claims in mind, let's look at some evidence that shows Psyonix does have access to this information. First of all, as you veteran players probably recall, Rocket League actually used to release yearly recaps detailing statistics from the game and community. And if you track the data in these posts from 2016 up until it stopped in 2020, the numbers follow a believable trend. Now, of course, they could have been making these up all along too, but it seems highly unlikely. Additionally, worldwide lifetime leaderboards of all the major stats are readily available to view on the Rocket League tracker site, further emphasizing the ongoing collection of this data. Next, I want to direct you to this tweet from 2019. In August of that year, Rocket League content creator Nito and her fiancé Kev received the exclusive Rockets Engaged player titles for meeting in game and eventually getting engaged. I bring this up as an example because it shows Psyonix's ability to access historical matchmaking data. To confirm their claims to these titles, Psyonix dev Dirk had to go back and find the exact match Nito and Kev had met in almost 2 years earlier. The point I'm making is Psyonix keeping track of or being able to access historical Rocket League statistics and replays is an ability they have demonstrated in the past, and they have no reason to lie about something like win rate, which leaves us with only one conclusion for this data. Something is giving the blue team a statistically significant advantage. The coin is obviously weighted. But why? Reddit user RetroRL asked the community that very question in a post to the Rocket League subreddit on the day the anniversary video came out. And one of the interesting theories that came from the comments was the idea that blue blends in with the environment of a lot of Rocket League maps, while orange stands out. Now, of course, the cars themselves could be a variety of colors, but in Rocket League, we don't really watch cars. We watch tags. Don't believe me? Go into a replay file, disable tags, and you'll see just how hard it is to track players on the field. As such, I think there's some merit to this idea. A majority of the maps generally have a bluish hue to the background. Then we have the green grass and the blue sky. You can see how a blue tag is going to be harder to track and notice, giving the blue team a slight advantage. Now, I'm not saying that blue's color advantage could have resulted in 280 million more wins. No, we're likely looking for a combination of multiple causes that have led to this large discrepancy. And it's possible the environmental edge of being on the blue tag team could be playing a part. But what if it's more than just what you see? Could it also be what you feel? Studies have proven that color affects our moods and how we perform tasks. And this even applies to video games. Now, there's a very interesting game theory video on this topic that I'll link in the description. But to sum it up, when it comes to games where aggression is key, like first-person shooters, red teams regularly display a statistical advantage outside the mean, while blue teams are favored in games that focus on strategy. Now, how this applies to Rocket League is up for debate. With orange standing in as the red team, you would think they would have the advantage in the fast-paced gameplay. But instead, maybe defenders are bolstered by the cool and calming effects of the colors around them while protecting the blue side of the field. It's an interesting subject to think about. Let me know in the comments if the color of your team affects your feelings or mood during the game. There is a strong possibility that the blue advantage is something almost completely void of player control or influence. Yes, this problem may actually be due to a flaw in the way the game is designed. In the code, blue is Team 0 and orange is Team 1, and some believe that dictates how the game populates players in online lobbies. One theory is that lower ping or higher performing devices may be getting put on blue more often, but how much of an effect they would have on the win rate issue is hard to say. Another idea that has more weight from player testimonials is that Psyonix matchmaking puts parties on blue more often, as they select a player for that team first and the rest of the group follows. If that is true, it could definitely play a large part in blue's apparent advantage. A search through 10 years of history on the Rocket League subreddit shows us that unbalanced color distribution has been brought up quite a few times. The fact that players are realizing they end up on one team way more than the other does suggest something built into the game is driving that result. Some people have even done their own experiments on these theories. After a 400-game sample size proved his belief that he was ending up on the orange team more than 80% of the time, a player named Vin decided to try and find out why this was happening. Vin's theory was actually the opposite of what I presented earlier. He believed that lower ping players are instead put on orange first, and he tested this by running multiple games through different regions. And as you see here, the data came back in his favor. As Vin joked in his post, it seems all he had to do to see his blue presets was travel to South America. While it's not very helpful to see conflicting data and theories, there is one thing that's clear here. Something is forcing these team assignments, and whatever is driving that could also be what is responsible for creating unbalanced teams. With that in mind, I would like to present what I personally think is the strongest community theory I've seen: tournament matchmaking bias. In RetroRL's original Reddit post, a player named Alterra suggested that Rocket League's built-in tournament system regularly places higher-seeded teams, or higher average MMR, on the blue side. So I reached out to Alterra for some more clarity on this issue. He said this was a flaw he had personally noticed in his games and was willing to provide evidence to support. Screenshots from his tournament games did back up the claim, but to accept this, I was going to need a little more than just data from one player. So it was back to Reddit to search for something I knew I could easily find posts about: bad tournament matchmaking. Focusing in on the posts with screenshots, I was able to quickly find over a dozen examples. Now, some of them are unbalanced teams due to Rocket League having to place higher ranks in lower ranked tournaments due to population issues, while others just show significant MMR variations between the teams. In either case though, the screenshots I found consistently showed the blue side as the higher ranked team. Competitive tournaments have been ran multiple times a day around the world since September 2020. If true, these 5 years of unbalanced tournament matchmaking could be the major source of the apparent blue team bias. So far, we've considered community theories, player testimonials, and statistical evidence in a search for the cause or causes of Rocket League's color balance issue. But to finish up, I wanted to take this investigation one step further. And to do that, I reached out to someone with intimate knowledge of the game for a more professional opinion. Corey Davis left Epic in 2023 after a 17-year career saw him climb from gameplay programmer at Psyonix up to co-studio head during the Epic acquisition and free-to-play launch. As a favor, he agreed to look at the theories we've covered in this video and give his personal opinions on their validity. Note that these comments come with a disclaimer that some of these topics involve game systems Corey did not directly work on, and others may deal with back-end features he cannot speak publicly about. The theory of ping or connection speed playing a role in team assembly was noted as something that may have been present in the old days, but he didn't write the code. He added that for the last 5 years or so, teams have been assigned on the back end with no regard for connection speed. So even if true, the early years would have had to have a very large impact on blue team win rate to maintain the advantage up until 2025. In line with this reasoning, Corey suggested an alternate theory, but for skill, not ping. If the game is now assigning the highest MMR player to blue first, and then round-robining the rest, the blue team would likely have a higher average rank, and perhaps an advantage. If true, this would be an easy fix by ensuring the first player assigned is truly randomized. With the tournament's theory, Corey indicated that he wouldn't be surprised if an implicit blue bias is in place that hasn't been intentionally randomized to account for. Again, if true, randomization by Psyonix could fix the problem if it was clearly identified. The last time I went this in-depth on a Rocket League system, my video actually prompted a public response from Psyonix. And coincidentally, it was from Corey. Will a current Psyonix dev respond to our theories and fully explain why blue bias exists? Well, that remains to be seen. In the meantime, I wanted to highlight another interesting statistic revealed in the 10th anniversary video. Did you know that Heatseeker is the most played LTM? With over 206 million matches since its arrival in 2020, this often controversial game mode doesn't seem like it will ever be going away. Have you ever wondered how this popular LTM came to be? Well, that's something Psyonix was willing to talk to me about. So if you haven't already, I invite you to check out this video about the creator of Rocket League Heatseeker. My name is Rocket Sledge. Thanks for watching.